So this is a momentum graph. And what a momentum graph does is it takes events from a timeline, quantifies it, and then shows that quantification over a period of time. Now I get asked quite often, as do my colleagues, about how to make momentum graphs. And what's really nice with the new addition of charts in Sportscode, it actually makes it a lot easier. And that's how I made this one. This one here is my example, is from the United States versus Japan. I pulled this XML off Y-Scout, and I've just given random point values to some of these events. So like a corner is 3 points, a goal is 10 points, a shot's 5 points. And then I've plotted that over this graph. And as you can see, Japan won 2-0, and you can kind of see why, because they had much more momentum in different periods of time. So like the 20 to 25 minute mark, they had 19 points to the United States 0. So it's just a good visualization, especially live, of what team is more dominant over periods of time. So how do we make this? Well, I'm just going to copy and paste this down. And I don't know how long this video is going to be, but it might be a while, so strap in. I'm going to double click it. I'm going to make sure we're on a column graph. We have so many different types of graphs or charts. For this one, I'm going to use a column. Then in my scripting, I'm going to get rid of all of this, and we're going to start again. So the first thing we need to do is we need to establish a start time. Now this is really, really important. This is the most important part of a momentum graph. And that we need to essentially create a start time that we can then plot timestamps from. So for example, in this soccer game, fortunately for Y-Scout, it already does it for us, where we've got this periods button at the very start here. If I hover over this, this is where the game starts. This is kickoff. If we come down into the second half, we've also got a second half one as well. So we've got a second half kickoff as well. And those are really important. Now, for something like soccer, where the 45 minutes is continuous and they don't stop for, like injury breaks or like water breaks, and the time stops, the clock is always moving. Momentum graphs make it really easy because we just have to set two start times, one at the very first whistle and one at the very start of the second half as well. For sports like rugby, basketball, I'm not sure what hockey is like, but ice hockey as well, where there's constant stoppage of the clock, it becomes a bit more difficult, and you might have to manually create these start times to make sure that you're consistent with the clock and not necessarily real time, if that makes sense. Because obviously in rugby, a half is 40 minutes, but it's going to take longer than that in real time because the clock is continuously stopping. We've got our two start times, period 1, period 2. Those are our two kickoffs. And that's what we're going to reference in our very first line of script, is the start equals start instances where row equals periods limit 0, 1. So we're finding the very first instance, and that's what this limit function is doing. It's finding the first instance. Now when we try and find the second instance, which we also need for this particular graph, I was going to call this variable end. We're going to go 1, 1. And how this logic works is that it takes the first instance. So this first number is like, how many instances are you skipping till you get to the instance you want? So since we're trying to find the first one, we're skipping none and then taking that first one. Whereas for the second instance, we're skipping the first one and then taking the next one. This confused me when I first started getting into scripting, so I just wanted to point that out. Now we're going to establish the events that we're going to be counting over this time. So I'm using the United States as my example. So I've given the United States a button ID of home team. And I need to add the events essentially to that button ID. So we've got crosses and corners and shots and whatnot. So I've got to add those instances. So I'm just going to do one and then copy and paste the rest. So we'll go corner equals button name home team plus. Now I've got to match the space dash and then the event. So space dash space and then the event. So corners. Same thing for goals. For example, goals, button name home team, and then if we find goals, space dash space goals. So space dash space goals. I've already done this, so I'm just going to take these and then just copy and paste those into this one, so I don't have to do all 6 of them. And this is where we start getting into the establishing of the events in the time period. So I'm going to call this, we'll go corner, and we'll go 5. Just because I'm establishing the first 5 minutes, and since we're going to be doing this a few times, I just want to make the naming convention consistent so I can keep remembering what to put. So 5, 10, 15, 20, etc., etc. Equals instances where row equals, and since we're doing the corner, team corner, and start is larger, is it start time? I just need to make sure I'm doing the right thing. Yep, and start time. And start time is larger than start. So it's larger than the start of this instance. So it's after the start of this first period button up here in our timeline. And end time is smaller than. Now, this is where it starts to get into some more interesting sports code logic. So we need to establish the first 5 minutes. Now, 5 minutes is 300 seconds. And that's how sports code prefers to enter the time, is in seconds. So what we're going to be putting here is end time is smaller than, and then in a bracket, start. So again, we're establishing our start time, finding the first period, plus 300 seconds. So it's saying instances where row is, team corner. So we're trying to find our team corners, the United States corners, and the start time is larger than the start of the first instance, and the end time is smaller than the start of the first instance plus 300 seconds, aka 5 minutes. So we're finding corners in the first 5 minutes. Now we do the same thing for the other ones. So I'm going to go down here, and we're going to go goal underscore 5, and that's all I need to change other than this button ID here, because we're trying to find goals now. So skipping ahead, I'm going to get my first 5. And what I've done here is just added some, like a little title script, just so I understand what's going on. But as you can see, I've just done the same thing for the rest of the events. So then when we get into this next 5 minutes, so the 5 to 10 minutes, so again, I'm going to create a little title thing here. So 5 to 10 minutes. The double slash means that Sportscode does not read this line. That means it's essentially just skipping past it and just reading whatever's afterwards. It's a nice way just to group and categorize your script together. Makes it easier to read. So if there's an error in my script and I know it's in the first 5 minutes, I know exactly where I need to go. So just copying this first one down. I'm going to change this to 10 because again, I'm trying to keep a constant naming convention. So in these ones, I've got the first 5 minutes. This one, I've got the first now 10 minutes. This is all the same. Again, I'm counting in this one crosses, and then the start time. Now we want to start from 5 minutes. So I'm just going to copy this, take that, and put that here. So we're copying from the start of 5 minutes, or the start time of this first period plus 300 seconds. And the end time is now going to be 10 minutes. Now 10 times 60 is 600, so that's what we're going to be putting, and that's 10 minutes. So now we're trying to find all the crosses where the start time is larger than the start time of our first periods button plus 300 seconds, so 5 minutes, and the end time is smaller than the start of our first period time plus 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes. And again, all I have to do is go down here and swap a couple of words, corner, corner, and now we've got our first corners in the first 10 minutes. Now again, I'm just going to copy and paste this, the rest of the events. And we'll just do one more. So 5 to sorry, we're now at 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. Again, I'm just going to take these first two, and now we're going to go 15, 15. Now the start time's at 10 minutes, so we're going to be starting time plus 600 seconds, and then 600 plus 300 is 900, so that's going to be 15 minutes. And as you can see, we're starting to get a pattern. So the end time of the 0 to 5 minutes is now the start time of 5 to 10, and the end time of 5 to 10 is now the start time of 10 to 15. And we just keep going like this until we get to 45. Now, I've done it in 5-minute increments. You don't have to do it in 5-minute increments. I've seen people do 1-minute increments. I think that's a little bit crazy because then you're going to have, 1,000 lines of script. I've got a lot of lines of script already because I'm counting 6 different events in these time periods. You can just count 1 if you want to make it easier, especially if you're going to have multiple momentum graphs. So you could have like 1 for shots, 1 for corners, 1 for, like final third entries. And you have multiple different momentum graphs charting these different things. I'm just kind of doing it all at once. So again, here's one I prepared earlier. It's going to get all these different time periods. Now, the one I will point out though is that this naming convention is the same. So let's just say 25 to 30 minutes. Start is 1500 seconds, which is 25 minutes, and the end time is 1800 seconds, which is 30 minutes. But you can see that this is all the same exact naming convention. Nothing's changed other than my little variable ID here counting 25 minutes, and then the seconds indicating the minutes time. The one that's different, however, is the last one, which is the 40 minutes to halftime. Now, the reason we don't go 40 to 45 is that in soccer we have stoppage time. So the game could go to 46, 47, 48, 49 minutes, and we needed to count the events that are happening in the 46, 47, 48, 49th minute as well. So the reason that we've put this end variable at the very start, we haven't actually used that yet, but this is the one time that we will. It's because we want to count all the events from the 40th minute, which is the start of this first period, plus 2400 seconds, which is 40 minutes. And then the end time is going to be smaller than the start of this instance, the start of the second half. So what we're doing is we're counting all the instances from the 40th minute to the start of the second half. So we're essentially even capturing, if the video stopped and they all went into the changing rooms for halftime, that doesn't even matter because obviously no events are happening. But it also means we captured the events of the 46th, 47th, 48th minute. So that's why this naming convention is different at the end here, because we're trying to capture that stoppage time. So now that we've got all of our instances here, it's time to actually start charting them. So I'm going to create another group. It's going to call it chart, using that little double slash to categorize my scripting, makes it a lot easier. And I'm going to put the word chart. Now you'll notice here that we actually haven't counted anything yet. We've just identified the instances. Now the reason we did that is because we're going to be trying to output a video for these as well. And it's just kind of saved us extra lines of script of having to not have to write out like movie where row equals team cross and start time is blah, blah, blah. So we're just trying to save some time, but that means we have to do the counting at the very bottom here. The other thing that we're trying to do is also multiply them by a points key. So we want corners to be worth 3 points and goals to be worth 10 points. So that means when we get to our chart, we need to do some brackets to try and indicate all of those different equations that we're doing, the counting and then the multiplication with points. Chart script in themselves, like if statements, also need to be in brackets. So that means we're going to start this one off with 3 different back brackets. So chart, 3 different brackets, and then we're going to be counting. Let's get our first one here. Count 5-minute cross. Oh, missed it. 5-minute cross times, and then my cross one was worth 2 points. So 2. Close that bracket because it's a multiplication, so we're trying to keep that equation within this bracket, plus create a new bracket, and this time we're just going to be copying the script, pasting that over, and now instead of cross, we're going to have corner, and my corners were worth 3 points, plus instead of cross, we're going to be having free kick, and those were worth 2 points. Make sure I put those in a bracket, plus, now the next one's going to be shots. I'm just going to copy and paste that here, shots. This is going to be a long line of script, as you can probably already tell. 5. Again, that's only because I'm counting so many different events within these time periods. Goals. And those were worth 10 points. And then the last one was going to be counter attacks, which were worth 2 points, I believe. Yep, counter attack was worth 2 points. So now that we've added all of our events together, we now have like an addition of all of the events multiplied by the points that they were worth within the first 5 minutes. So that's the first part of the chart. The second part, and I'm going to put a comma here, is the name of the column itself. So you can see here on my finished product, I've got 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. That's where this part comes into play. So in quotation marks, I'm going to put 0 to 5. And that's going to put my title there underneath my column. I'm then going to go to another comma, and the third part of the chart script is the color. So we don't actually put button color as you typically would in other scripts. We just put color, and then in the brackets put the color we want. So we could do, our typical RGB script, 100, 0, 0, or whatever we want to do. If you don't put a color at all and you just go comma and then go to the next part of the chart, which we'll get to soon, it just gives you a default color, which is, I think, some sort of blue. But we want to give it the color of our main United States button up here. So I'm going to go color and then put home team, which is our button ID, so we can reference that color. Then comma again, and this time we're putting a video. So we've done our count, we've done our name, we've done our color. Now it's the video that we want to show when we click this particular column in the chart. And we want to show all of the instances in the first 5 minutes. So this time, because we didn't count, we can still use this script here. And we're going to go that, or corner, or free kick, or shots, or a couple more goals, or counter. Counter. And then we can finally close the bracket, and that's the end of our entire script. So we had the count, we had the name, the color, and then we had all our movies. Now the chances that I messed this up somehow are pretty high, just because we had so many different scripts. So let's see. What do I get wrong? Oh, I need to close the final bracket. There we go. Do I still have something wrong? Let's have a look. I'm sure I do. Let's just put these in a bracket and see what, well, I can always reference my original one to see what I did wrong. Let's see what I did wrong. Oh, I clicked the video because I'm in report mode. Yeah, I put these movies in a bracket, so let's do that. That's probably going to help us. Bracket, okay. Still telling me I'm doing something wrong. Did I miss one of these brackets? Bracket. Did I have 3 brackets to begin with? Let's see what I did in my first one. Yeah, I did. Okay, let's do that. That's what I've done wrong here. Since I had 3 brackets, I probably don't even need 3 brackets, but now we're going to be good. There we go. So we got our 2 points in our first 5 minutes. So we had our first 2 points in our first 5 minutes here, and 2 points in our first 5 minutes here. Now, because I only have that one chart script, you can see it's taking up the entire original length of the chart, but that's because I haven't added my other ones. Now, fortunately, I'm not going to do that whole thing for the next, but the next 7-minute intervals. So I'm just going to paste this one in. And the only thing that's changed between this first one with our 5-minute interval and our 10-minute interval is that all I've had to change is the 5 to the 10. Again, that's why this naming convention up the top here is really helpful, just because it keeps the scripting easy and it keeps it consistent. But as you can see, we've done the same thing. So we've counted. Again, I've done my triple bracket. I'm not sure I need the triple bracket. Let's see if I just remove this first one here. Let's just have 2 at the start. Yeah, well, that works as well. So I didn't need that 3 brackets at the start. I just need the 2, but we got our counts all added together and multiplied by the point values that I gave them. And then I've given it the name, the 5 to 10 minutes, and then the color of our button ID. And then we've got the rest of our movie statements also in a bracket so we can output the video that we want. So again, if I go into report mode, I click this 9, it's going to show me those videos based upon those point totals and the events in them. So in this one we have crosses, shots, and then cross. So that was worth, how many points is that? Cross is worth 2. We had 2 crosses, and we had a shot, so 4. Shot was 5, so that means we had 9 points in the 5 to 10 minute interval. Then we just keep doing that again and again until we've got all of our different chart scripts put out. And then we have our complete graph. Now the only thing that's different between this United States and this Japan one at the bottom is I've done a couple of things. The first thing is just had to swap the home team up here to the away team, which is the button ID of Japan. And I've also had to change the home team to the away team for the button colors of the columns. That's an easy find and replace script that I did just in another window. So I didn't actually have to script all that out by hand. The other thing I've done is you can see this is upside down, and that's a nice little feature in charts. If I come to this little axle here, I can actually change from a line chart bottom to a line chart top, and it's going to flip it for me. So that's how you make a momentum chart in Sportscode. I know that was quite involved, and I kind of went a little bit more advanced than I probably needed to with the different point system and multiple events. But you can see the basic concepts of the first most important thing is setting some sort of start so you can have something to base your second script off, and then just kind of keeping it a constant naming convention and remembering that sort of chart script where we have 4 different aspects: the count, the name, the color, and then the movie part. If you have any questions, let me know. My email's in the description. Other than that, have a good day and good luck making your momentum charts.